Hi, I'm Dr. Neto, founder and CEO of Wella Health, where we're working on affordable access to healthcare using technology and alternative care pathways, microinsurance being central to our work. I'm delighted to be on a chat on InsurTech Business Series, where we talk about some of the stuff we're learning at Wella Health and how we can improve insurance adoption across Nigeria and Africa. Enjoy.
Welcome to the InsurTech Business Series podcast. I am Thorny.
And I am Damola. And together, we host the most exciting podcast on insurance and InsurTech related topics in Africa. Stay tuned. And we're joined by one of the pioneers within the InsurTech, health tech space. We've had a conversation with him before, yes, in 2020. It was also at our two conferences, InsurTech conferences, and it's been, a supporter of the work and been a part of the journey so far, really. And we must say thank you. Dr. Neto, welcome.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to be here, and well done on the amazing work you've been doing over the last few years. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We really, really appreciate the support. So before we go into the conversation, how are you? How has it been for you? I know there've been a lot of travels, a lot of things, but personally, how has it been?
Yes, it's been a very interesting time, filled with a lot of events and activities. I'd say that the industry has come up a lot more, so there's a lot more interest. We've closed a number of, really good partnerships. We've grown adoption. Insurance companies are paying claims now. So things are looking up. Things are looking up. Yeah. And not without its challenges, of course. I think, in Nigeria where we work macroeconomically, we've seen a lot of challenges. But I think even globally over the last, 12 months, things have been difficult. Inflation has gone up. Costs of doing business along, so many different dimensions are increasing. So, it's been a challenging last couple of years, but there's also been, many good highlights. So, excited to dig into some of them in this chat.
Awesome. It was great that you mentioned claims bit. I know that this was a central theme of our last conversation and even at our first conference in 2020, right? You were just dragging us left, right, center, around the claim. But yeah, I'm just like you said, a lot of things has changed and definitely technology innovation, within the space. Looking at 2020 to date, I think it has facilitated a lot of these things. And I know that you play within the health space. And speaking specifically around technology and innovation, one of the things that you offer is telemedicine, right? And telemedicine is not yet generally accepted, right? There are still divided opinions around it. But I wanted to ask, right, because we see that you are facilitating a lot of things. How do we run telemedicine and make it work? Right. So I'm going to be dropping a lot of stats today. Right. For this, I was looking at Statista earlier and they mentioned that the revenue for digital health is going to grow about like 26%, up to $140 million by the end of 2023. Telemedicine will play a huge role in terms of getting health care to more people, especially in Nigeria. Well, how can we get it right? How are you doing it?
Yes, thanks. So, really good question. And I get this telemedicine question a fair bit because telemedicine has almost been the poster child, for, health technology in the last, few years. And especially with COVID coming into play and in-person interactions reducing, again, telemedicine, had a big opportunity. And we did see a lot of, uptake in actual telemedicine adoption. But as the pandemic has waned and, is almost gone, at least a lot of the responses and interventions are in place. What we've also seen is, the uptick in telemedicine adoption globally. This is, has kind of come down to almost, approximately near pre-pandemic levels. And so, starting to have people, think again whether telemedicine is actually solving, the right problems for people. Looking locally in Nigeria, we do a fair bit of telemedicine. But my belief is that, telemedicine is useful, but useful within a suite of services. And so, providing telemedicine standalone, I think, has its limitations. I think that the way people think about, healthcare access is not just, talking to a doctor on the phone, or using video chats. I think they think of it as, the symptoms they experience and the best route for them to get that care. And when they have a partner that is able to deliver care via a number of channels, then, they are more likely to adopt that partner, not really the channel. Because, say, the first point of call, and we're seeing a number of, health insurers doing this, is your front door can be a telemedicine service, so you have an app where you talk to a doctor, and then the next step, so that interaction just doesn't end there. The next step is actually something that is in person. So it might be a medication pickup, it might be a lab test, it might be, further assessment by a doctor. But that whole, end-to-end interaction can happen via the same, whether it's partner interface, is really important. And so that's where I think telemedicine really, can play a role, is that it is one of a suite of services that people have access to, and then they can choose to adopt it. And they know there is a fail-safe where they can fall back on if, they don't get the full service from telemedicine. So that's the way I think, personally, my thinking is evolving around it, and even the industry is organizing around that idea.
So I just really want to piggyback on what you just said now, because I'm currently in the UK, and one of the areas that we've been working on recently has been around telemedicine. And this is because there's been like a major strain on like the health sector for the UK. Right. While I know that the acceptance level isn't that great in Nigeria, or we haven't gotten to the point where we are able to optimize the use of telemedicine, what would you say are like the biggest challenge in terms of ensuring that people, at the first point of call, tend to reach out using telemedicine before, ultimately going to have like a face-to-face visit or checkup at the hospital? Because I want to believe that this in a way will sort of reduce the strain on the infrastructure, and also in terms of access to, quality healthcare, because anyone and everyone would just really want to go to the hospital first. Like that's the first point of contact. If whether it's a minor or, a major sickness, everybody just wants to have that face-to-face conversation. So how would you think, people can encourage the use of telemedicine?
So very true. A lot of it is very habitual. And if you look at, health systems that have been relatively successful with telemedicine adoption, you find that, it's embedded into how they do usual and general, practice. So I'm aware that in the NHS in Scotland, for instance, in many of the services there, they've had a steady uptick in telemedicine adoption, even pre-pandemic. And then when pandemic came, they saw a lot of growth, and that growth is persisting. And that's because they were very much set up to take advantage of that. They had the infrastructure in place, they had the awareness in place, they had a way to refer people to a telemedicine service if they went into their usual, general practitioner. And so it was really embedded in how they thought about, delivering care. And I think as well in systems where, you can't get into a GP very easily, it's not so much in Nigeria. Nigeria is relatively easy to walk into, a clinic and get an appointment or see a doctor or see somebody anyway. It's not that easy in the NHS. I know a number of people that have moved, and when I talk to them, they complain, say, I want to see a doctor, and they say I should come back in a week or 2 weeks' time. So it's very jarring for people. So in a system like that, telemedicine provides a great, alternative, because if you call to book an appointment, they say, okay, how about you use this telemedicine service? So you can see how that, solves the problem. And if they have the infrastructure in place, they're promoting it, you can see how that adoption works. In our own, markets or in our own jurisdiction where you have that relative ease of access, where you can walk in and just, go to a clinic, as long as you have money in your pocket. This is a caveat, of course. If you have, money in your pocket, you can, walk into a clinic and relatively easily see a general practitioner. So in that instance, then I think it's always going to be challenging to get adoption, because you've got to then try to convince, the average clinic on the streets to turn people away when they present and turn them to a telemedicine service. I mean, you struggle to find any clinic or doctor that be willing to do that, because if the patient in front of him that's willing to pay, he's not going to turn them away. Whereas, in the alternate example in the UK, for instance, that's what they do. So you can see how adoption, is going to be different. So where we have that relative ease of access and where there isn't ease of access, so usually where you now have the queues are when you go to public hospitals. So when you go in to see a specialist, for instance, or you go to a public hospital where it's cheaper, then you have hordes and hordes of people just waiting. What is the incentive there for the doctor or the practitioner to then switch over to telemedicine? I think it's very challenging. It's limiting because you don't have the physical interaction. You have to wrangle with the devices, the internet, the voice, like the experience isn't that ideal a lot of times. And it's just easier to just see your patients in clinic. And you now ask yourself, what is the business model as well for the public institution for charging for that? So it can be very, difficult and complex, and adoption can be challenging. And so I think that in the near future anyway, you will not see that significant adoption unless there's a huge awareness and huge push on a lot of people across the board to make it happen. But I wonder whether that effort is better spent in other things, So I think, like I said, it's great as part of a suite of services, but I don't think it will become the bulk or the habits for people, just because we still have that, access is still a problem and people like it. Yeah.
I want to talk about like the cross-functional activity, not cross-functional, but cross-border to start with. What you mentioned about, people having access back home in Nigeria. I mean, one of the major things that are shown over a period of time, or that I've seen over a period of time, has been the fact that, say, for instance, people that are left or that have moved away from the country and are trying to, then gain access back to maybe their previous doctors, and they would want to access healthcare. But what I'm trying to push now is in terms of a better use of this platform and integrating them with the current infrastructure. So this is not just for maybe the African continent or for Nigeria alone, but then looking at it holistically from, cross-border. So somebody in the US wants to have access to maybe somebody, say in Nigeria, to, a doctor in Nigeria. Those are some of the sort of use case, that I'm trying to wrap my head around. So do you think that those are some of the possible adoption telemedicine? Because we're beginning to see that as well. But again, like you said, we've not seen like people fully embrace telemedicine.
Yeah, so I think the main challenge with cross-border, utilization is a regulatory bit, because the fact that I'm licensed in Nigeria doesn't mean I'm licensed in the UK and vice versa, So I think the licensing is a problem. And if you look at the US, where, they have state licenses, what the telemedicine companies, do is they actually go and get doctors in each state, or they have, doctors that have licenses for each state, which adds a level of complexity. So I think the regulatory bit makes that difficult. And even if you surmount that, there's just a, market sizing and market access and awareness problem that I think is very challenging to overcome, and it will be expensive to actually reach the kind of customers or clients that you need to make it, worthwhile. So again, on paper, it might make sense, but I think in practice, it will be very challenging.
Looking at it from the diaspora point of view, right, and how they can help to facilitate access to quality and affordable care, even to their loved ones back home in Nigeria, right? This is one use case that I think that is underused or not very much exploited. What are your thoughts around creating solutions around people in the diaspora being able to buy healthcare cover for their loved ones here in Nigeria and scaling that really? Because yes, we send money home for different reasons. Chief of it will be healthcare, if that's accurate or not, right? But I think that being able to provide that direct healthcare cover, so mama just needs to go into the hospital, get treated and go home. They don't need to make any payment. That's one use case that I'm seeing. But from your point of view, from your experience, what do you think about this?
The diaspora opportunity is becoming more and more apparent to me. And in Nigeria, in the first quarter of the year, there was a huge problem around cash availability because the central bank, tried its demonetization. And we saw people really struggle to get access to cash. People had really poor health experiences. And in fact, there were some deaths as a result of a cash shortage. And I was chatting to a number of, friends abroad, and, they were talking of how there's no point even sending money to Nigeria because when they send money, their families, can't use it. And it got me thinking that actually, Wella Health is set up to enable that family member who they need to access that healthcare without the need for cash at the point of care. So, rather than, having their family member, take that money remittance out as cash and pay, say, a doctor or buy drugs in pharmacy, we can facilitate that and we can take the payments, from the family member in the diaspora. And so that got us, thinking, and, we've recently launched a product around that. But then when I looked at the numbers, it's actually pretty impressive, depending on who you believe, of course. But, the estimates from the United Nations that, Nigerians send about $23 billion home annually. And I mean, that's as much as that's like our second, FDI earner. Yeah. We earn slightly more from oil. So as it turns out, Nigeria's biggest export is its people. So a lot of money is sent back. And if you look at Nigeria Bureau of Statistics, they do these surveys, and about 5% of remittances is spent on healthcare. And so when you do the numbers, it's about $1 billion a year that is spent on healthcare from people in the diaspora. So that's a massive market opportunity. And it's apparent to me that, there needs to be a concerted and, defined efforts to try and organize some of that capital to just improve healthcare access in Nigeria. So that's what we're working on. So I'm a big believer that, the diaspora is actually a good market to help them, organize the healthcare spending so that people back home really get good access to quality.
Definitely interesting. And I like the point that you made around intentionally organizing that to make it work. Because yes, I know that there are a number of players trying things in that space, Wella Health inclusive, but how can we have a conscious and dedicated effort towards making it work? I want us to go back a bit, right? From our previous conversation, the goal for Wella Health is to solve the challenge of out-of-pocket expenditure. And this is estimated to be about $7 billion being spent. How has that journey been for Wella Health?
Well, we don't have $7 billion yet in our company. If that's what you're asking. I've always known that it's a long-term journey because the biggest challenges, and we knew this early on, the biggest challenges we face are around education and trust. And so the fact that the market exists or people are spending money doesn't mean they'll spend it with you because, first of all, who are you? Why would they give you money? Because we know the Nigerian society is very low trust and low integrity, unfortunately. So trust is a huge barrier to overcome, and it's expensive to overcome. Related to that, of course, is education. Is, educating people that, this out-of-pocket expenditure that you have, there are more efficient ways to spend it. And that also takes a good bit of work because, as we know, the trust for and understanding of insurance in Nigeria, isn't really that high. And so you have to then spend a good bit of time and effort, educating people. And so I just, I've always known that it will take a bit of time and it'd also be expensive. What I think the industry hasn't been great at, and, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't feel like there's been a concerted effort to build that trust and education across the board in the market. I think that, insurers and InsurTechs and everybody in the space should come together and really, work on improving the general awareness and trust. And the idea that, a rising tide lifts all boats, we need to subscribe to that so that we don't have all these, pockets of, energies and work going on. Yes, they can, but, can we, collaborate a bit more on a high level to really fund, huge awareness campaigns, huge marketing campaigns that, lets people know and understand that insurance is the way to go, not just for healthcare, but I think across the board, build some of that trust. And then from there, when, the market is a lot bigger, there's more awareness, the individual companies can come in and maybe start competing. But I think there's a lot of work still to be done to build that education and trust.
Hey, this is Brian Falchuk from Boston, Massachusetts in the United States of America. I want to give a shout out to the InsurTech Business Series, Falumi and Damola. What you are doing to help move the industry forward in the African continent, but also more broadly for the industry at large is so incredibly important. As I think about the future of our industry, it's conversations like the ones you're having that will help us move forward. So congratulations on the success of the show. Please keep at it.
Again, we've always had conversations around communication, on marketing, advertising, the awareness that you just talked about. But from some of the market surveys that's been done and some of the interactions that we've had with people that are in the non-insurance sector, has been the fact that there's still that trust issue, that they can't give their money to an insurance person because they feel that the money is gone or that they would not be able to utilize the money. So do you think it's a point of awareness now, or it would be a point of actually changing the direction of how we communicate to the people that we're trying to reach?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of work on the how, I think so. For instance, this is why I've always, spoken about paying claims in industry, because actually the best story you can tell about insurance is to show people that it works. We can talk from now till the cows come home, but if we don't have lots of people that are saying, yes, so I used insurance, so when I went to claim, they paid me, they didn't stress me, that's the way, that's the proof of the pudding. So I think that, we haven't done a great job at, talking about the success of insurance in people's lives. Life insurance, for instance, I mean, the difference that makes to somebody a great story would be, a stay-at-home mom, for instance, or, a housewife with 3 kids, her husband is well off, he's providing for the family and, everything is going well, and he dies suddenly. We know how disastrous that can be. That can push a family into poverty. But if life insurance pays out, that makes a massive difference. Have you ever heard a story like that on TV anywhere?
No, not exactly.
No, but I'm pretty sure it happens. I'm pretty sure it happens. Well, not all the time, but I'm pretty sure there's at least one person in Nigeria that has happened to. But nobody has put that widow on TV to tell her story.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot also to it, right? Because that widow, for example, doesn't want to be out there so that family members will not come and meet that Shina has money.
Well, I mean, you won't say that you paid her 20 million naira,
No, but then a lot of people are quite evasive when it comes to testimonial. In fact, I saw a post recently on Twitter saying that everybody complains that they don't trust insurance, but when they pay claims, there's nobody in Nigeria that would come forward to say, I've been paid claims, so I have money now. But before then, you just hear a lot of, comments on Twitter say insurance companies are dubious. And when people finally get their claims paid, they then go mute. We don't hear these things anymore.
Yeah.
So, you're right. And we've seen that ourselves, but we actively ask people. I wonder how many insurance companies actively do this. I mean, the truth is, it's a game of numbers. If you ask everybody, one person will eventually agree. That's just the way. But if you don't ask, if you ask one person and they say no, and you say, we're not going to do it, then we're never going to know. I think that as a matter of course, everybody gets a claim paid out should be asked, would you be willing to do this for us? And honestly, you ask 100 people, you get at least one.
So I'm wondering, can partnerships work? And so partnerships in the sense that, so for example, insurers are partnering with Wella Health, right? So Wella Health is tech focused and they are customer facing and they're able to get these testimonials, for example, provide that kind of guidance to people. Okay, this is what insurance does. This is what they can benefit from it, right? Can partnerships work in that light? Because maybe the insurance companies are not equipped today to do all of that, but maybe extending their abilities through some of these kind of partnerships perhaps can be a way.
Oh, absolutely. But no insurance company has come to me and said, please give us, 2 or 3 people that we can put on a billboard that says, you paid my claim, go and, get insurance. So we still have to do that work and then go and, sell it to the insurance companies that, this is I think the strategy has to also be, there has to be a belief in that strategy from the insurance company so that we are working together, so that, it's almost like the marketing from there says, this is a definite strategy. We already have the plan. We just need the people to put on them. Then it makes life easy for me when I go to find the person. as opposed to going to find that person to tell a story, and then I have to still pitch that story then to insurance company. You know, like life is hard for everybody. We are also trying to make ends meet.
Yes.
You get. So I think that, you know, insurance companies with big budgets should have this as a marketing strategy, and then, you know, approach us, their partners, to say, you know, listen, find 2 or 3 people for us. We can tell a good story, have a campaign, put it on billboards, put it on TV, put it on radio. Honestly, do that a couple of times. And now we have a reference point, because when we go to sell, what I say is, you don't see that advert. Look at that advert. Insurance, they pay. Insurance, you know, like there's no reference point. And people tell us this. We have, you know, hundreds of agents in the market. People say, we don't see you around now. We don't have a reference point for you. I would like my agents to be able to say, look outside that market, see that billboard. That's our partner that paid that claim. I can tell you who pay your claim. You get. So I think that, you know, marketing teams within insurance companies should look at this seriously and see, you know, how do we tell those stories that make people believe that these things happen?
Okay, so for the marketing, I think individually, each insurance company or some insurance company tries to at least change the narrative. Well, like you mentioned earlier in this session, was the fact that we all need to come together and do that, because it doesn't seem like the weight one man is carrying or one insurance company is carrying is actually changing the narrative. It just seems like people just know that insurance company and say, oh, okay, they've come with their advert again. But I mean, if it comes, you know, from a wider range, like with collaborative efforts from, you know, different parts of the insurance industry, I think that would, you know, sort of cause like a major impact. Then, you know, just one person trying as much as possible to maybe create as many advertisements as they can, or marketing campaign, and trying to see how they can, you know, change the narrative. But then, say for instance, if it was AXA Mansard, it's still just going to be AXA Mansard. It's not going to be that the industry as, you know, a whole sort of changes that narrative. In Nigeria, I want us to move a bit away from communication in terms of claims payments. Do you also see a challenge with the fact that people are not willing to pay for insurance because there's no flexibility in payments? I know that that's what Wella Health does, you know, by helping to unbundle products. Say, for instance, now we're starting with the malaria insurance, you know, just making it affordable for like the average person on the street. Do you think that has been effective in terms of conversion and, you know, bringing people into the insurance space?
My thinking is evolving, and it's still an evolving story. We're still collecting data on this. I think that, to be honest, it is challenging to get people to part with, you know, a regular premium payment without getting a service in return regularly. You know, the market hasn't evolved yet to that place, and so I think that, you know, unbundling is certainly one way to start that conversation. Unbundling also in a way that they are able to experience something outside of, say, a claim, right? So, I mean, the perfect insurable, you know, episode is something that is rare, but is significant, right? So, I mean, that's why life is a great product, at least from the insurance point of view. But you only lose your life once, or, you know, whoever has that, you know, product only loses their life once. And, you know, it may not happen for years, it may not happen at all. And we know that a lot of times, actually, the most life products that we sell in the industry are either mandatory products or embedded products, you know, so things like credit life or group life. You know, voluntary life, I don't know that, I've not seen the data, but I'd be very surprised if it's up to, you know, 30% of premiums. Do you know what it is at all?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say voluntary. I would say it's a mixture, because again, what we do back home is it's a mixture of investment in voluntary life, so that people don't come back and say, I did not die, I did not get my money back. So we don't try to do voluntary life like expressively. It has to come with something, which is largely investment.
There you go. Okay, so making the point exactly that the idea that I pay a premium and I didn't suffer the event and I'm getting nothing back, no, this is a scam. And so I think that's really where, you know, the industry needs to figure a way to serve people, but still obviously, you know, make it a profitable venture for the companies. And so I think unbundling is one way, so that people have kind of smaller events that potentially they're more likely to claim from. But then going beyond that is thinking about how do we then embed it into something else. I think the story about embedding is still evolving, but I think that ultimately that's what we as the industry have to figure out, is how do we embed insurance so that the service it's embedded with becomes the regular experience, right? And then the insurance is now the extra benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. Embedded insurance, I think, would shape the future.
It's still difficult. So, Dami, let me jump in. When we say embedded, I don't like, the reason I'd like to really say and pin my my flag to embedded is that it's one thing to embed, it's another thing to be successful with an embed.
Okay.
So the devil is in the details. So not just embedding for the sake of embedding, but thinking deeply about the value of what it is that insurance brings to that product.
Yeah.
I find that, because we've done this ourselves and have learned, is that it's one thing to just embed and say, if you buy this and you get insurance, but how does that play in the mind of the customer? Are they looking at the product as one, in that the experience from this product is part of the experience of insurance? I don't know if that makes sense. I think that sometimes they're very removed. For example, if we embed insurance with buying a bag of flour, how do we get people to understand or feel that every time they use their flour to bake bread, they are consuming their insurance? They're not consuming flour, they're not consuming bread, they're consuming insurance. So I think that's where the embedding has to get to, so that it now looks like actually the flour is part of the insurance. Not that I bought flour and then insurance is something on the side. So like a real and true deep embed. I don't think that we as industry have figured that out. I think all of our embeds so far are very superficial, at least in my experience.
I think it's a journey, right? And I mean, all of these things really just pumped up post-COVID. Honestly, the industry has grown. The space has grown. Embedded insurance, we see a lot of people playing within that space. We've seen a lot of partnerships, InsurTechs and insurers doing things differently, and seeing how basically train things on the wall and seeing which sticks. Yes, so it's interesting, and it would be interesting to hear about some of the partnerships that Wella Health has done in the at least since when we last spoke. I know that you've done a lot of partnerships. There was Bima Lab as well since then. I mean, just tell us.
Yes, so partnerships done a number. So I think probably the biggest one is the one with Stanbic Bank. So we've got a partnership with Stanbic where when you sign on to their mobile money wallet, you get health insurance benefits, and we're able to upsell people on that channel or via that channel. We also have a partnership with Verve. So with a Verve card, you can get insurance plan at significant discounts when you buy using your Verve card. So we have those two. Those two are really big partnerships that took a lot of effort to put through, and we're seeing decent uptake following those partnerships. But still a lot more work to be done. I think that signing the partnership is one hard bit. Getting the partnership to work is the second hard bit, as just as hard, if not harder, than the initial partnership.
Yeah.
We've also had, a couple of partnerships with MFIs. I think, MFIs provide a good opportunity. So microfinance institutions provide a good opportunity to, really get things going. And a few fintech apps. So, we've got this partnership with Reprite, like a neobank and the savings app, where, when you open an account, they actually, provide you with some of our health benefits. And then finally, I think we just launched this with Keeper. Keeper is they're a fintech that provides merchants tools and financing for small merchants. So people that buy fast moving consumer goods. These guys provide them with invoicing, POS, those types of services, and then we've embedded some insurance into them. So we've got 3,000 of their merchants using our insurance plans, and with the goal to have way more. So I think, some progress, but still a lot more work to be done.
So for me, I'm looking at the SME space, the gigs workers space, right? How do we get these guys to buy insurance? Not because we want to sell insurance, but they actually need insurance, right?
Yes.
Yes. So it was interesting when you talked about that partnership. I mean, what are your thoughts around, what we need to do in order to better serve this market? Is it flexible premium, flexible product, or really just designing something different? Because it's a different space, different way of life, different thinking, different mindset. The pocket strength also is not the same with the one that was used to design insurance products that exist today.
Absolutely. And I think you've hit the nail on the head is that, for these types of, new opportunities is to really put on a, customer discovery and product hat and go into the trenches and, work with, the partners and the actual people there to figure out what are the risks they are most worried about. I think that's the key thing. People don't buy insurance, right? They buy that, risk protection, I guess. Is that okay? Is it fire? Is it, theft? Is it, what is it? Loss of income? What is it that I'm most concerned about as a small, merchant, small business owner? And I think understanding that and understanding how they think about it, understanding their own cash flow, so you also understand how to collect payments, and then designing products and premium collection around that process. I don't think that, we've done the work. I mean, I even say this ourselves, we've obviously done some partnerships there, but I don't think that we have the best product yet. What we've been doing is shoehorning our current products into that space. But I think that the real, winners there will be people that, really, put on their t-shirt and jeans, enter the market, sweat a bit with these guys, understand what they're going through, and then come and design very good products that speak to them. And then you'll see the uptake will be significant. I think that actually the biggest opportunities around this kind of small business insurance, because they literally have zero. There's no insurance. We work with 2,000 small businesses, and we've done the surveys. Okay. They have no insurance, and they have significant risks. We've got people with inventory of 2, 5, 10 million naira, and there's zero insurance there. So I think it's a big opportunity. I don't know that anybody's really focused on it yet.
I think partnerships again. I mean, I'm maybe because I work within partnerships, I'm a big proponent for that, right? So I think that partnerships can definitely extend the reach of insurance companies, right? Working with the likes of, Wella Health to reach markets that they've not been able to. And beyond just providing the current insurance products, how can they work with those partners, for example, to design new products?
Yes.
Right? I think it is.
But I think, Dami, I think the problem with the partnerships is the partnerships sometimes are arm's length partnerships. I think the way that, you work in partnerships, I think the way that partnerships really work is if you enter the streets with me. I think sometimes it's too abstract, because when we try to have this conversation and describe things, it doesn't really hit home. But, enter the streets with me for a few days, you need to click instantly. Be like, okay, I see where you're coming from. And then you can take that first-hand learning to go and, figure out how to put it within the, the constraints, of course, that you have in the insurance side. But I think that, it's not enough to just, do Zoom calls, have meetings in air-conditioned offices and talk about partnerships. I think the partnership is, bros, come with me, make we enter markets. Let's see how this thing is working. Not to sell, but to really understand. Yes. And when we understand, then we can now build the right products for people.
Okay. Before we start talking about, building product, do you think that, judging by the fact that you said now that partnership is practiced in arm's length, do you think that this might be, before we put the product out, we might have to reevaluate the infrastructure and, flexibility of having to remodel some of our business strategy to fit into the current market changes. Technology is changing. Consumer behavior is changing. Some of the market findings that you currently have as well, I'm sure they were really not there before. And then, because it had evolved over time. But then we still have infrastructures in place that are still catering to the traditional or previous ways of insurance. Do you think that this might be like the first aspects to review before we then start to design products that would be best fitted for this market segment?
So I think it's a bit of chicken and egg. I think that it's hard to know, how you're redesigning your existing systems if you don't go out and, find out what you need to redesign it for. But then again, if you don't redesign, maybe you can't really go out and do it the right way. So I think on the level, there's a bit of a chicken and egg problem there. But I would say that, going out and figuring out what it is that's out there is probably the way to go to inform the changes we need to make. Because I think there are a lot of changes we need to make. I think, insurance, and I've said this a number of times, has been very much built in Nigeria for the big corporates, That's traditionally where, insurance companies have made their money. And so it's a very different way of thinking when you're trying to do kind of small businesses, because with your big corporate, you wear your suit and tie, get into a condition. With small businesses, you wear your t-shirt and jeans and you go and sweat in the markets. So the people you hired for the AC and suits is not the same people that you hire for, sweat on the streets. And also it takes that bit of time, with one, big business you close, it's 100 million naira in premium, everybody's happy, the bonuses are good. But with the small business, to get 100 million naira in premium, can take a bit of work. But once you get it right, that grows almost indefinitely to, billions of naira in premium. So I think, again, it's a strategy thing. Like we said with marketing and the storytelling, it has to be strategy, but also with this product and market development, there also has to be strategy from the top that says, we believe that the future is in small businesses. We know that's where the opportunity and market is. So we're going to do the work and make the investment to figure it out, long term. So I think when the insurance companies have that as central to their strategies, then perhaps they'll start investing long term in the work that needs to be done to get us to improving their systems for, making this work.
Absolutely. What does the future hold for Wella Health? And then also like for the insurance innovation and technology space?
Yes, I'm very bullish. I'm an entrepreneur. So by definition, I'm very optimistic. If I was optimistic, I wouldn't start a business. So I'm very bullish. I think that the only way is up. And that's the advantage, I guess, of, being in a market where the penetration is low. It means that we can only get better. And I think that the ingredients are coming into place. What I just wish is there should be a bit more acceleration, a bit more understanding that we are early days. And so, things will not be right. Some of the numbers will not make sense. Some of the things will not add up. But believing that if we are to make the progress we need to make, we need to be patient and, invest. So I'm very optimistic. Like I said, I think that lots of opportunity. There's more capital coming in. There's a good bit of startups around. The enterprises as well are open to partnerships. We've seen, like you said, Airtel and AXA have done some things together. We've done something with Stanbic. I hear MTN are, coming into the space, so there's a lot going on. And, I'm very excited, to have some more of this, actually crystallize into real progress.
Yeah. And you want Wella Health to be in the middle of it. Maybe.
Oh, absolutely. As far as healthcare goes, yes. I think we're not to toot our horn, but we're the best partners as far as, delivering healthcare services really affordably goes. We work with over 30 partners. We manage tens of thousands of patients every month. We have a lot of experience. We've built really great technology. So I think we're the partner of choice as far as healthcare goes. So use Wella Health.
Okay, I think before we let you go, 2 questions that we need to ask. That there's we would like to assume that there's currently technology disruption, but we just wanted to know what your advice would be, especially now. It hasn't really, been disruptive in the African continent, but what would you say about, using that to the advantage of majority of the health sectors or infrastructure back home?
Yes, so great question. So first of all, I don't use the word disruption actually when it comes to Africa. The reason is that there's nothing to disrupt. What we're battling with, and if you look at the originator of that idea of disruption, Professor Christensen, he actually wrote a book focused on markets like Africa, and he talks of non-consumption, right? He talks of market creation.
Yeah.
So actually, that is what technology affords us in emerging economies that really haven't been participating in markets like this. Is with technology, it reduces the barrier and cost for creating markets and for actually, helping people pull in products into their lives. And so now, for instance, something like over 90% of, our customers never had insurance before. And in fact, in that book on, market creation, that is the prosperity paradox, micro-insure is a specific example they use on how, a market creating innovation using technology can, enable people to pull in products that make a difference to their lives. So I think the model is really using technology to create markets and using business models based on technology to create new markets that can really, revolutionize access.
Protection gap across the world. I was looking at one of the posts from Simon Torrance recently, and he puts that at about $7 trillion. And if you look at Africa, insurance penetration is about 3%. In Nigeria, it's less than 1%, maybe around 0.5% or 0.4%, whoever is counting. So yes, the opportunity is there, the gap is there. How are we using technology, innovation to remodel our products and how we view customers and better serve them? It's an interesting time. We're super excited about what's happening within the space. Yes, it's early days. We are growing. But again, the idea around our podcasts, our webinars, conferences as well is how can we learn from others and also take those learnings to build what we are building, right? So we don't repeat their own mistakes. Also understanding that the African market is peculiar, is different. I know that recently you opened up shop in Akwa Ibom. What's happening there? What should we be expecting next?
Yeah, so that is twofold strategy-wise. One is, working with state governments. And so we wanted to work with a progressive, state government that's looking at health insurance, in particular adoption. And Nigeria recently passed, well, it's probably a year now, so it's no longer that recent, but a year ago, Nigeria passed a new Health Insurance Act, and that act put state health insurance schemes at the core of how health is going to be delivered. And so that office in Akwa Ibom State helps us to start to do state health insurance work across the South, and even the South.
Okay.
So that was the strategy there. So you see us do a lot more work with the government. And the second thing was really actually helping us to grow out our customer service operations. So we found that growing, a lot of people, and as Abuja and Lagos can be quite expensive. So, to keep our costs low, we thought, that would be a great second, office location for us. So those are the two things that led us to, to do that. And surprisingly, actually, part of the reason why we chose Akwa Ibom, I coincidentally am from there, but that's not the reason.
Coincidentally,
seriously. But the reason is Akwa Ibom is our most successful state, actually.
Wow, okay.
Yes, we had quite a lot of interest there, and, did a lot of, good numbers in Akwa Ibom State. And we had some good people there as well that we could build our office on top of. So that's actually the reason that we went there in the end.
Okay. I mean, it's interesting you said that because a lot of people are targeting, Lagos, maybe Ogun or Ibadan, but in the West, right? You say you're doing stuff at Akwa Ibom because again, Nigeria is huge, right? The opportunity is Nigeria, not Lagos. Perhaps maybe is the way that we are looking at it as well, because those in the South, in the North, they actually need these services. Perhaps we are not. So in terms of the success in that space, is it a thing of culture? Is it language?
Very good point. I think there's a number of reasons. Culture, of course, being one of them. For instance, in the North, you struggle to sell insurance if you go to the North because of the culture there. But I think that very simply, without kind of doing too much of an analysis, it's actually cheaper. Because if you think about it, the noise in Lagos, for you to cut through that noise, for anybody to pay attention to you, it's so challenging. If I want to buy a spot on radio, you can imagine how much it will cost me. If I want to buy a billboard, it's significant again. Whereas I can go to a smaller state somewhere in the southeast, even in the north central, and buy out all the billboards in the town for less than what the cost of one billboard in Lagos. The cost of my plans are the same. You know what I mean? So, and I'm doing low cost plans. So why would I go spend a lot of money buying, ads or getting share of mine in Lagos and Abuja when I can go, for a fraction of the cost, get share of mind in a smaller state and still, do quite well. So especially like a small company like ours, starting off with something that's a bit challenging, the smaller states can be a good ground, a fertile place for us to experiment. And then when we're successful, we can now come to Lagos and start to fight with the bigger brands.
Thank you for your good work and also for coming on our podcast. It's been an interesting conversation, especially around insurance penetration, telemedicine, as well as the infrastructures that we need to put in place to ensure that we're able to get these products to people. So I want to say a very big thank you. And before we go off, we would like to ask on behalf of our audience how they can reach out to you.
All right, thanks. Always a pleasure, jumping on a conversation. So LinkedIn, I think, is a great way to look at the updates on Wella Health and the official stuff. And then for the kind of more unofficial, informal, and trouble-seeking side, you can follow me on Twitter. So on Twitter, I'm Neto, DOCNETO. But on LinkedIn, I'm Neto. So depends on the flavor you want. You choose the channel.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing as much as you did.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
Hi,
and I hope you did enjoy that conversation. Quite interesting one. Do ensure that you continue to listen to our podcast and share as well with your colleagues and friends future episodes and even previous ones on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, on every platform that you get your podcasts.
Right, and also don't forget to join the conversation on all of our social media platforms. We might have comments, reviews, as well as questions. Please do share on our LinkedIn page, on our Twitter page, as well as remember to follow us.